Welcome to my first real-life conference talk since the pandemic. As you are seeing right now, I'm going to talk about how to deal with toxic people, but first of all, some words about myself. I'm Gina Häußge, also known as Fusel around the net. I'm a 42 years old software engineer. I also happen to be a maker, a boulderer, which is why I'm running around with this brace right now. A PSF fellow and a GitHub star, and I'm a 100% nerd. But probably most important for this specific talk is I'm also a full-time open source maintainer on my own project Octoprint, which is the snappy web interface for your 3D printer, which is written in Python, which is also why I'm here. Not just with this project, but several before that, I've been doing open source for most of my adult life now. Over 12 years now, just on Octoprint, and most of that actually full-time. And as anyone in this room who has been a maintainer or near to a maintainer of open source can probably know, is that that means I have experienced lots of very awesome things, but also sadly had my share of bad behaviors that I had to experience. And this is what I'm going to share about today. First of all, some of the common bad behaviors that I've seen, and my personal coping strategies that I have discovered on dealing with this stuff to keep my sanity, basically, and also to stay professional with these people. So my hope is that when you leave this room in half an hour again, you will have a better idea of how to diffuse the situation, how to protect your personal sanity when you encounter some kinds of the behaviors that I'm going to share. And basically, I want to give you something of a tool belt for maintainers and also guidance for users of open source projects on how to deal with bad encounters. But so first of all, what kind of bad behavior are we going to talk about here? And some slight trigger warning here. There are some ugly sentences ahead. I'm not sharing actual quotes, but more like paraphrased of actual ones that I got over the years, in order to give you an idea of the classification here. So first of all, we have entitlement. So situations where people think you owe them and only them something. So like that you fix the problem that they are facing right now, that you implement the feature that they need for their stuff that they are working on. And that you do that, of course, right away and not whenever you find the time, but whenever they need it. And that is basically a misunderstanding of the contract of open source, or the misunderstanding of the realities of open source at the bottom. So with open source projects, we usually have a small group of people, often even solo maintainers, often underfunded, often completely voluntary work done in the home, in the free time of the person. And that is something that a lot of people out there don't get, and where this entitlement then comes from. And sometimes the nerve of some of these people just leaves you speechless, I have to say. What we also have and see is frustration. So people who have run into some issue with your project, or something which I often actually see in my work, something related to it. So it is not actually your software or your project that is malfunctioning, but it is something that something malfunctioning that they experience through your piece of software that you're maintaining, and so they are blaming you. And they are angry and they don't know what to do, and so they are basically just venting their frustration at you. And this thing is especially tricky, or this kind of situation is especially tricky, because often there is a real issue at the bottom of this, and something that you want to address, that you want to see solved, because it will obviously make your project better for everyone, and not just this person who is ranting at you right now. But this person is ranting at you right now. You really don't want this kind of communication. This is not something that you want to be on the receiving end for, and especially not if it's not even your fault, but something else that's broken in their workflow. And then finally, we have the really bad stuff that happens, sadly all too often. Outright attacks, like people cursing at you, people telling you to, I mean, I have gotten the suggestion to basically take my own life in the past as well for problems that arose with software that I wrote, which is, of course, never fun, very exhausting, and definitely a contributing factor to maintainer burnout. And sometimes this is just down to trolling. Some people really just want to see how far they can go before something fun for them happens. Sometimes it's also the next step of frustration or entitlement, where people simply do not get that the way that they are addressing something right now is not going to work out for them, and they are just escalating things and getting more mad and more frustrated, and then start to attack. Okay, but how do we cope with stuff like this? My approach is this. And this is actually how I cope. So people used to think that I joke when I tell them that I have a punching bag in my office. But I'm a full-time open source maintainer for over a decade now, so I actually do. This is it, and it really helps. The question, though, is why does it help? And this is where the second part of my talk is now going to start. The thing is, your first instinct when you encounter stuff like on the previous slides is to jump in and give them an earful and tell them how they are really bad people, and probably also a selection of your best curse words and something like that. But don't. That will only make you bad and escalate things even further. And we already have enough wars in the world. We don't need to add them over open source projects as well. So what you want to do instead first is let off some steam. For this reason, I can recommend getting a punching bag, if space permits. But something like just doing jumping jacks or running in place or anything really to get your heart rate up will work. Because the thing is that your initial stress response cycle first has to work through and finalize, and only then should you actually engage and respond. Okay, what the heck is a stress response cycle? What I can recommend, if you want to read more on that, first of all, is the book Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, or also Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Robert M. Sapolsky, and all of that will also be at the end of the talk again. The thing is with these kind of behaviors, they trigger a stress response in us. For your brain, which was built up 10,000 years or so ago, this is nothing else than some beer or something like that in the bushes that is about to attack you. So your body does what it does best when it is threatened. It pumps a whole lot of fun stuff into your bloodstream, adrenaline, and a bunch of other nice things that make your heart rate go up, make your stomach stop working, and a bunch of other stuff that, by the way, if that stays for too long in your blood, will lead to fun and not so fun results as well. And this whole cocktail is there so that you can run really, really fast away from the threat, or that you can punch really, really hard against the threat. That, of course, doesn't help when the threat is sitting somewhere in their cellar on the other side of the world and is just putting nasty words into your on your screen. But your body or your brain don't care about that. They are built to respond to stress like that. So unless you actually now do something about this stress, this mixture, this cocktail will stay for a really long time in your blood. And the problem is that sometimes if you really have bad luck, you can also get stuck in kind of a feedback loop where your body thinks, because you did not now run or you didn't fight back, you apparently didn't get the memo that there is a saber-toothed tiger in the bushes and about to attack you, so maybe it should just add some more adrenaline so that you might finally notice that you now are supposed to run. And that can then lead to a whole cycle where thoughts are running through your head and you are staying angry and upset for days or weeks. And ask me how I know. What you really want to do in a situation where all of this stuff is pumping through your bloodstream is using it. So physical exhaustion of any kind. As I said, punching bag, running in place, a brisk walk around the corner, something like that, as long as you get your heart rate up. That will allow you to complete the cycle. That gets your head back into gear. and deals with all of this stress. Note that it doesn't deal with the stressor, it only deals with the stress. But the moment that you have dealt with the stress and don't have a full cocktail of all of this fun stuff running through you anymore, you can think straight again, you can stay professional in responding, and you work better in our modern environment, basically. Okay, so once you are more yourself again, then you can actually respond. I usually do this by, first of all, reminding the attacker of the realities, which is that open source doesn't give anyone, not them or anyone else, the right to demand anything. Open source is based on collaboration and cooperation, and users also need to do their part to solve their issues. That doesn't necessarily mean that I expect people to send in pull requests or something like that. Not everyone can code, not everyone wants to code. That is completely fine. There are lots of other things that you can do to help a maintainer maintain their project, as we also heard this morning in the keynote, which is helping with triage, being part of the community, helping with issue analysis, providing logs, just helping other people with issues that you already solved in your workflow that you discover in the forum or something like that. Anything that puts pressure off of the maintainer helps everyone else, and the likelihood that stuff gets fixed also increases significantly. What I really do not like doing, and what I also hate when I see it done in other open source projects, is this usual patches welcome note or comment that you often see, because that feels very passive-aggressive, sounds like only code matters, and I think is not really constructive in a situation where there is a bug that needs to be solved. An exception to this, I would say, is that I have also had people who came to me like, why is this a bug fix? I could fix this in 2 hours. That is where I say, well, then send a PR, please, because then I don't have to do that. But other than that, patches welcome, don't do that. What I also like to do is remind people of my boundaries and remind people of my community's boundaries. Telling people that they just overstepped some boundaries is very, very important. Many don't even actually notice that, especially not if they are currently blinded by their own entitlement or just by the frustration they are feeling over the issue that they encountered. And so it is very, very helpful to just communicate clearly, look, I understand there is a problem, I understand the problem, I even might have an idea on how to solve it, but this, like we are doing right now, is not how we are going to interact with each other. Refer to your code of conduct, which you hopefully have, and if not, you should change that. And the interesting thing is that by just doing that, I'm already gotten a surprising amount of apologies and constructive exchange thereafter. Like people who are really jumping into my face before when I told them, look, there's a problem, I understand that, but this is not how we are going to talk about it. Half an hour later, they actually gave me an apology, said, you're right, sorry, I overstepped something here, and can we please start again? And that works. Of course, it doesn't work if you are still in attack mode yourself, so disengage. That is really, really, really important. If you cannot find the right words on how to communicate something like that, what I can really recommend is reading Brad Cannon's excellent The Social Contract of Open Source for inspiration. That is a blog post that I'm still so very grateful that he put it out, that he wrote it. Okay, but if the abuser still doesn't back down, what do we do then? There are, of course, additional measures that you can take. You can deprioritize an issue. So, for example, I actually have refused to work on particular issues that only affected one single person, or at least didn't work on them immediately, when it felt like it was something I could risk, like it was not likely that it would affect more or that it would have a really negative effect on others. You can always point the abuser to the door, and if they don't go voluntarily after again and again pushing against your boundaries. You can also pull out the banhammer, of course, and forcefully remove them from your project as a last resort. What is really, really important here, I think, is that you do not have to accept abuse. And for the sake, and the sake of your sake and the sake of your community, you also really shouldn't, because as long as we work against these kind of behaviors, as long as we enforce boundaries and make it really clear that this kind of communication style is not welcome in our communities stay really nice and have a really nice climate. And it also happens that the community starts to enforce these rules on their own without you as the maintainer having to step in. And that actually brings me to the next point, because so far this was all very focused on you as you in your role as a maintainer of a project. But is there also something that the community can do to help? What you can do as a user of a project and as part of the community of a project can do to help? And glad that you ask. Yes, there is. Plenty of the people out there, especially of the old guard of open source from like the 90s and the 80s and even older stuff, will tell you that, well, yeah, people like this exist and this is just like it is and you need a thick skin or just stop maintaining because then you're just not cut out for this kind of job. And this is something I really do not agree with. I think all of us in this room are able to call out bad behavior when we see it in public communication or even in person. And in cases like that, we can remind people of the code of conduct. We can remind people of unwelcome tone and attitude, of aggressive undertones and all of that, and how they might be a problem here. We can also flag or report bad behavior when we see them, for example, on forums, on GitHub or elsewhere, so that someone can take care of that if needed. And in general, we can step up for better treatment of each other, instead of just going like, yeah, this is just like it is, and some people are, but what can you do? You can do something. And you really don't have to leave this up to the maintainers. Don't escalate, but speak up, downvote, report, and so on. But very important, always remember yourself that there is a human on the other side. Even if you're frustrated, even if you're angry, if push comes to shove, do a little workout. Get yourself a punching bag, run around the block, something like that. Cycle through a forest and scream. I've done this in the past as well. Before I got the punching bag, there are plenty of options. So in general, just remember your stress response cycle before responding to anger. Figure out what the best way is to complete yours in a quick and easy and society-compatible way. And do that always before you respond to people like that and engage with them further. Further reading, those are the two books that I mentioned. Burnout by Emilia Nagoski, a very short read actually. You can go through that probably in an afternoon or something. Gives you a really good overview of how this whole stress response works and also how it contributes to burnout and how you can avoid that. Zebras is a full deep dive into stress in humans. So basically everything and the kitchen sink about what stress does to your body and to various organs in your body and to your aging and everything else. By the way, lots of gray hair, open source maintainer, hooray. And the QR code points you to the mentioned post by Brett Cannon. Now, I actually apparently talked way faster than I anticipated, which is why this is already the end slide. You can find the slides behind this QR code or by just going to fusel.github.io/EP2025. You can find me online at fusel.net, on Mastodon as fusel@chaos.social, and on Blue Sky as fusel.net. And yeah. Now I think we have plenty of time for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Gina, for the awesome talk. We now invite questions. The mic, okay, first person. Hey, first of all, thank you for Octoprint. I've been using it for almost 12 years. I have a question. You said that ban should be the last resort. Is it always the case? I mean, if somebody goes and jumps at you, threatens your life, or...
It depends. I mean, when someone actually tells me I should kill myself, then the ban is immediate. But it shouldn't be the first reaction on someone just, you know, like shouting their frustration at you. It's always something where you need to find a good balance and also find the best way to keep your community wholesome, because that should also be a huge focus, in my opinion, to basically keep things so that everyone will feel good as long as they play along nicely.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for this talk. I think this is one of the topics that I think as a community we should talk about more. I wanted to ask you a slightly different question. Like, I've been lucky, quote unquote, to be on the front page of Hacker News, and that means that I got a lot of comments that have a similar overtone to the ones that you were sharing. Do you believe that the rules or the suggestions that you made apply there as well?
I mean, what definitely works in this case, also for the sake of yourself and your mental health and everything, is you still should complete your response cycle in cases like that, your stress response, right? You experience stress when you read stuff like that, so you need to do something about this kind of stress and find a way to resolve it for you. As long as it is not a community where you're actively participating in and where you are not actually having money in, so to say, I think you don't have to personally respond to everything. So I've also been on Hacker News, and I've also gotten comments or seen comments on Reddit and such where I went like, but that is something where I'm just not going into the comments, because why should I? You know, they are not giving me anything back. They are just complaining about stuff. They don't probably even know me, so why should I in any way interact there? So that should also be something somewhere on the slides. Choose your fights, basically. But always make sure that you get rid of your stress, because stress long-term is stress stuff in your blood. Long-term is really not something good.
Right, I'll take up boxing. Thank you so much.
Very nice talk. So actually, two questions. One, do you have any Octoprint stickers with you?
I forgot them. I'm so sorry.
And then the question about the talk. So did you ever follow the urge to probably tell one of those trolls to very kindly go screw themselves just before hitting the ban hammer?
Sorry, again?
If you have any entitled trolls or whatever, did you ever follow the urge that probably most people have to very nicely tell them to go screw themselves and then just banning them?
I'm sorry, I still haven't fully understood the question.
Basically telling the people to piss off and then banning them sometimes.
I've done that. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, obviously. I've banned people left and right, but yeah, trolls just keep coming back. But as I said, I've also actually gotten really good responses out of telling people where I had the feeling that it is mostly frustration speaking out right now, out of them, you know, like, calm down. This is not the kind of stuff that I'm going to accept here. And then there I did not need to ban.
Yeah.
But I just 3 months or so ago, I had to send me a wall of text blaming me for everything wrong in their life, basically. I told them, that is really nice of you, but this is not the kind of talk that I want to see here. Then they sent me another wall of text that this was my personal problem, and then I banned them. So sometimes I just don't like to do that, because it basically stops any kind of interaction. So as long as I still have the feeling that maybe there is something that can be done here so that stuff can still be rescued, then I try to avoid that. But if someone really just ignores all boundaries and all rules, then...
Thanks.
we still have time for more questions.
The mic at the back of the room is really, really evil.
So, thanks for the talk. I have just one question, because those are very good strategies for going on in an asynchronous way. But I was wondering, how can I deal with somebody in a workshop, or in a meeting, if something like this happens? So I had this in the past, where somebody was really trolling in a workshop.
Was that a situation where you were leading the workshop, or?
Yes, exactly. So I was leading the workshop, and this person actually tried to get an entire group to exit the workshop.
In that case, really just publicly call that out, that behavior. Like, I would just go, like, hello, would you please stop this? If you don't like this workshop, then there is the door. Anyone who doesn't like it is welcome to leave, but stop making this a shitty workshop for everyone else who is here by your behavior. There are people here who want to learn something, and everyone who doesn't want to learn something and just troll around can leave. And that is how I would handle that kind of situation. Of course, in that case, I cannot first go on the punching bag. That would be a bit of an interference. So that is where I would suggest, like, okay, I would probably work with my hate in that moment a bit and use it. And I had to do that in the past as well. But in general, if you have the chance, try to get rid of all of the magic stuff in your blood first. If not, call out the shitty behavior and tell people where the door is.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
More questions?
Yeah, just another one. First of all, to maybe add to the other side of the scales. Thank you so much, Gina, for Octoprint. I think this is amazing. The question is, when you're bound with like more of a commercial thing than open source, when you're maybe part of a bigger organization and there's a client and they want something from the software and it doesn't work the way they expect, what is your take to like maybe less than constructive criticisms from clients to which you kind of own in a way, so you can't just like point them to the door?
Tricky. I mean, commercial situations is also something which I thankfully have not had to experience for the past 12 years now. But when I still had, I was in the Java enterprise environment. And what I there also did was I actually had a little punching ball on my desk, which my ex-boss still remembers. I talked to him a while ago, and he was like, oh, I remember that, and now you have a big one, fun. The important thing really always is to keep feedback professional, to keep it constructive, and so do whatever you have to do in order to get to that point. And if someone starts jumping down your throat, tell them that they are apparently just frustrated and need to cool off in the nicest way possible in the environment that you are in, of course. Try to not get fired with that. Like if the client is actually being an ass, then that is tricky. I remember that. But yeah, never just take this kind of crap. That is just not good for you in the long term.
Yeah, asking GPT to rewrite this in business speech.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I also have a question for like a little bit similar, like it's not like a client, for example, like you're working with somebody and it's like not like your choice exactly, like you could not just like ban them, like you have to work with them, you didn't choose the environment, right? And maybe like you had like very active sense of like very active toxic aggression, but like sometimes it just like could be maybe like challenging, like you try to communicate with somebody and they're just like ignoring it and like make it look like it never happened, and but you need to kind of continue somehow with interaction to reach some outcome in the project. I don't know. Do you have any advice for this type of situation?
Let us talk about that later.
Okay,
because
sure.
I'm just getting a stop sign over there, but just get over here and we can talk about that on the way to lunch.
Thank you.
No problem.
A round of applause for Gina.